Comments from the public? Anyone wishing to address the board? Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My name is Melissa McManus, and I'm a resident of 3 Kavanaugh Drive in Rouses Point. And I'm here tonight, not as your revitalization project manager, but as a private citizen. I was hoping to share some concerns that I have with the village board about an issue that has come up recently, again, after many previous airings. Just to give you a quick history, as you know, I'm a Rouses Point native. I lived for 15 years over in the village of Champlain, and while I was in Champlain, I served on the village board for about 7 years. I was appointed to a shared services water and sewer committee in 1992. We were looking at how we could work together on water and sewer issues. At that point, the town was very interested in expanding water and sewer out in past the current boundaries of the Champlain system. As you know, my expertise is basically about trying to acquire funding and grant funding, so I bring that to the table. I have some things I'd like to make kind of enter into the public record tonight, because even though I am very much supportive of shared services, I'm even a fan of consolidation in a lot of ways. If I had my way, there would be a lot of government operations in New York State that were consolidated. And then I'm certainly in favor of cooperation between communities. I think if you look on these walls, there used to be a letter signed by me thanking the village of Rouses Point for all the help you gave Champlain during the ice storm. And I know there's a wonderful tradition of helping each other out, and that we would all do whatever we can to help our neighbors. I have been concerned by repeatedly hearing what I consider to be a significant inaccuracy about our village utilities, and the fact that I believe that it is being used to draw conclusions about future actions for the village of Rouses Point. And I spoke with Trustee Reed, I spoke with the mayor last week after a meeting that unfortunately I could not attend. And I asked the mayor to request some clarification about the state of the Rouses Point water system. And I believe you received today, Bumper, you received an email and you received a letter about that. And I don't know if the board has it. But I would like to just read to you a couple of segments of an email and a letter, because, you know, the fact of the matter is people in our village are very, very concerned, as well they should be, about what happens when Pfizer leaves. We all know we have major water and sewer rate increases ahead of us. I know the board will do everything it can to cut costs, but there is no doubt that water and sewer rates will go up. We also have, you know, potentially a tax increase ahead of us, and we talked about that a couple of meetings ago when I was here. And I did have a chance to look at the figures, and the numbers we talked about that night are pretty close. You know, that Arsene has done some work, I looked at them, and they're pretty close. So when you hear that we also need to spend $5 million because we're under orders to put in a new water system, you can just imagine the concern that that is generating. At a time when we have 8 new businesses opening their doors, we have people buying homes, we hope more will buy homes, and it really concerns me that that information is out on the streets. So here's a statement from the head of the Department of Health in Clinton County. Back in 2012, Matt Cooper of Bernier Carr, and that is the consulting firm that's been working on this project, contacted us a number of times regarding past violations for the village of Rouses Point, Champlain, and town of Champlain. In his role, Mr. Cooper was a representative for the greater project, representing all 3 municipalities and trying to justify funding for the project. CCHD, Clinton County Health Department, sent him violations for all of the past 5 years or so. Now, such violations are part of a specific program called SWWIS, so they sent them the violations. However, Mr. Canosa goes on to say that these results were either misinterpreted or not well explained. In a nutshell, CCHD couldn't be more happy with the Rouses Point Water Department and the village regarding their water system. There must have been a complete disconnect between what you were being told and what your understandings were about the system. And Mr. Canosa also sent the April 2012 report that gives a glowing report, and this letter. As I discussed in a recent telephone call and email to Mr. McManus, the recent and present operating status of the Village of Rouses Point Water District water system and water treatment plant relative to the requirements and provisions of the controlling law of public water systems is and has been excellent. Such excellent status and compliance is detailed in the April 18, 2012 inspection report, which is also attached to this letter. More specifically, it should be noted that no operation violations were identified during 2012, other than typical waterline breaks that occurred in the Village Water District last year. As I had previously mentioned, such waterline breaks are listed as violations, but they're considered random incidents, acts of nature, and they are not at all held against the operations of your system. Similar to 2012, the village water system exhibited excellent operating status in 2010 and 2011. The last known operation violation for the water system occurred prior to 2010, when elevated disinfection byproducts, DBPs, were occurring in the water system. And we all recall our letters we used to get about that. You will recall that during 2008 to 2009, your village water system staff and your village engineer worked together to remediate the presence of such DBPs in the water system by installing an additional point of chlorination for the system at the village water tower and reducing the volume of the chlorine that had to go in at the raw water intake. Relative to such consistent, excellent operating status over the last 3 years, please know that the CCHD has no request or mandate to require that the Village of Rouses Point change their water source from the present Lake Champlain surface waters to a new groundwater source. Now, he goes on to say that they'd love to see you in the future off surface water. They'd love to see everybody in New York State off surface water. But I can guarantee you, knowing the politics of this state and this nation right now, no one is going to mandate that for a system in compliance because there's no cash out there to pay for it. So I thank you for allowing me just to enter that into the record, and I think, it's important that that be corrected every time it is stated because it is, it is such a scary thought for people. So that's the first thing, is just asking that when you work with this process, the process stays with the facts. The second request I have of you is in terms of grant funding. And I'm sure there are people that are going to be watching this on TV, and there are people sitting here who are going to chuckle because I'm always here talking to you about grants. And I really have no problem with dreaming big. I love it. And I think that it's, that grants can be a wonderful tool to getting to where you want to be. But to thine own self be true. You always need to be honest with yourself about the likelihood of getting the funding, whether or not the funding that you're going after matches your own priorities. And that is something that I think is really essential as you look at this process. I'd like to, if you'll indulge me, read you an email exchange that took place between myself and Mr. Cooper from Bernier and Carr. After speaking to people in the village about the results of last Wednesday's meeting, I emailed Matt. Now, I've met Matt because you may all remember in June or May, I went to the town and talked to the whole Shared Services Committee on this issue and expressed my concerns about the grant applications that they were planning on filing last summer. So I emailed Matt. You and I met at a Shared Services meeting this past summer. I work for the Village of Rouses Point and have been asked by board members to assist them in evaluating whether or not to join in the grant application. Unfortunately, I was unable to attend the meeting. Would it be possible for you to please provide me with a link to the NOFA, which would be the Notice of Funding Availability, basically a description of the grant they'd like you to apply for which you are recommending the community submit an application. Also is the 2010 report you referenced at the meeting available online. So I sent that off to him, I think that was last Thursday. My response was, Melissa, I'm a little confused about this. The Rouses Point Board approved moving forward with the grant application last night. I'm not sure what further evaluation is needed. I'm not sure what 2010 report you are referring to. The Shared Services Committee had B&L do a report several years ago. Perhaps that is the one. If so, Rouses Point should have a copy of it. At which point I replied to Matt, thank you for your response. Sounds like there may be misunderstandings, perhaps on my part, which I'll work to remedy. In the meantime, could you please forward info on the notice of funding? I have yet to have any response from that, and that was about 4 or 5 days ago. So again, back to the point of trying to look at what funding is available and what benefit it likely holds for you. There were applications submitted in July, both for CFA money, for priority project money, that I explained to the consultant before. It was extremely unlikely they were going to be funded. I believe there was an application to the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund. You were way low on points, predictably, because of the situation in these systems. I think that was appealed unsuccessfully. The bottom line is, as the community looks at this, there just aren't a lot of grants for water and sewer. What grants there are through rural development and other agencies are lined up for systems that are not in compliance, that are drawing surface water that is not okay to drink. The sewers is going to places where the sewage is leaking into water systems and leaking into water bodies. And places that have a much higher cost of services than we do, even though we will have, and where incomes are lower. And so to think that we're gonna fund $16–20 million of improvements on grants, it's simply not going to happen. And the regional council money that is my best guess of what this is for. And I don't know, I can't get anything in writing on it, but it sounds like that's what they're lining you up for. There has been no notice of funds available. There was a $2.5 million infrastructure fund awarded to the entire region. The council meets on Thursday. I'll be in Potsdam for that meeting. There has been nothing released. I do not know what Matt is referring to because there's been no public statement on this. If I haven't heard it, it's not out there yet. And so I would urge you not to rush to judgment on this because there's no, at least unless there's another program that he's looking at. And I can't get information to find that out. But if there is, then I think you still should perhaps take your time. So thank you for indulging me. As you know, I've got pretty deep roots here, and it really disturbs me to see someone come into town and alarm our residents who already have enough to be concerned about. And I'll be glad to answer any questions you have.
Very good. Thank you. Okay. You want to do your presentation on the D-Link?
Oh, sure. You're tired of listening to me yet? I'll be glad to snap.
Oh, anybody else from the public got anything first? Go ahead, Melissa.
Okay, I'm gonna switch hats here and update. Grab the right set of papers. So this one will come here first. Okay, first of all, I really, before I do anything else, want to thank you all for being so good and so patient and so supportive through what has been such a difficult project. I could not have had a better group of people to work for. I can't thank you enough. So, thank you. I'm happy to report that if you do get a chance, I think the mayor was at the station late last week, or today. It is starting to actually look like we will rise from the demolition into construction. The back portion, what used to be the baggage area, is really shaped up. You can see how it'll be the open air. The posts are up. It looks good. The platform's starting to come together. We've hit rock bottom inside. They did the abatement in the crawl space, got the insulation out, dug down what they needed to. The floor joists are in. They're starting. Floor's in now, so you're ahead of me. They're framing up, starting to frame up the walls. There is progress being made. Thank heavens, finally. And even the mechanical and the plumbing and the electrical contractors on site. So another good sign. So we have all 4 contractors that are working. I have my usual project budget update for you. It just keeps getting longer and longer. notice on this, there's a list of change orders that the board has heard about before. We're gonna do some checking with our SEN, and make sure that we followed any formal approval process that's needed on these, and we'll let you know about that at the next meeting. But we are still in the black. It's our same old spreadsheet. Our funding is the same at the top, and you can see the growing list of change orders. In the mid-column, all of the Jameson change orders. Total expenses to date, $960,000. Our funds available committed right now, $967,000. So we do have still some additional projected expenses. I'm going to talk to you about the insulation in just 1 second. Benny, feel free to laugh your head off. I've been doing it for a week now. And then at the bottom, some hopeful notes. We do not have final paperwork, but I believe that the grant that we've talked about will be transferred to the village, the Clinton Essex Regional, adding $50,000 for your sponsored project, which will bring our total funds available up to a little over $1 million. So that gives us, again, it's about just about $50,000 cushion, which we're going to try desperately to hold on to. Okay, and then there are some possible deductions that I am going to recommend to you at this point, and I'll take you through each of those, okay? And then maybe we'll go back and see if there are any questions on the spreadsheet. First of all, let's start with the insulation. The Project Advisory Committee for 2 years questioned the designers about the need to put insulation in the building, and were shut down by the architect and the engineer every time. An air gap was going to be enough to keep that building warm. I was at a project meeting last Tuesday. Brian, bless him, joined me in Southwest for a while, and toward the end of the meeting, Mr. Jameson said, before I frame those walls up, you really should insulate the building. And I thought, the engineer sitting next to me said, absolutely, it's a good idea. And I said, I'm sorry? Oh, yeah, you should be insulated. So after trying, Benny was the biggest advocate in the village for trying to get the building insulated. We had a day and a half to make up our minds about insulation. I polled most of you. Brian, thank you, and Bill and Becky and the mayor all got back to me. Brad, I hope you're okay, because I didn't have a chance to get to you, but it was go, go, go. They're framing the building up so that we'll have, be able to spray in, I think it's, someone's gonna correct me if I'm, closed cell insulation to get about an R21. Oh, there it is, excellent, excellent. So, I talked to Dave Trudeau about this. He's very happy. He does not know if he'll be able to get us any extra IEP money, just because there may not be any money. You may not have enough in the fund to do more, but he said he would look at not just the insulation cost, but the differential between what we were going to pay for the furring to put the beadboard on, and then we'll have to pay for the studs to create the room to spray the insulation in. So on this sheet, you can see we have additional projected expenses, $21,700 for the framing of the walls and the turret area, and then $7,400 for spraying in the insulation. At this point, the engineering firm is recommending that we have Mr. Jameson, of course, do the prep, do the wall, the framing, and then the village would contract out to have somebody come in and spray on a Saturday, because then it lets everybody keep working, doesn't interrupt their schedule. So I have that before you tonight. Do you have any questions on that? I chatted with Brian on Friday when he and I were trying to figure out what to tell the people at the building, and his sense was this will pay the village back. Not too, it's a good investment.
Heating and cooling all year round. You won't have any mold, it's just really, you wouldn't build a building without insulating it, so.
Oh, that's what I've been after I go over there every week and tell them, you gotta insulate that building. You gotta tell somebody you gotta insulate that. I said, that's ridiculous to put a brick building. They thought that building was 3 bricks wide And then between each layer of brick was 1.5 inches of
Yeah.
airspace, but it's not.
No,
It's all together.
It's all together.
It's all together. It's 3 bricks solid. That's it. If it was 1.5 inches apart, then you wouldn't have a problem.
That's why the railroad quit using it, couldn't
Yeah.
keep it warm.
Yeah.
So we all have Benny to thank for his persistence.
Yes.
11th hour, but it's,
But also on that insulating, on the closed cell, around your windows and stuff like that, you're gonna have to do something else, because you can't use that, because it'll push too much.
Yeah.
I think, you know, and stuff like that around your windows. So I think you're gonna have to use the open cell, which is that little one right there. It's a softer.
Yeah, it's soft
Okay.
one.
Yeah, I think, I'm not sure, I'm not an architect or whatever, or designer or whatever,
um,
but,
can I pick you first to ask?
but anyhow.
So would that all be done at the same time typically, or would the
I'm
finished work
sure.
around the windows be done right at the end, when you put in the trim on?
I think it'd have to be before. I think, I'm assuming, I'm not sure.
Once they put the windows in, you think you can go around it. and
You're right.
Yeah, I think,
Yeah.
yeah, the windows have to
Then
go in
put your
first.
trim
Yeah.
on, and put your molding on.
Yeah.
They'll do the whole building, the turret, and the main part of the building for $7,400, and it'll come out of the energy efficiency program. So we're gonna vote on it.
Wasn't that all in the IEP program, when they first started the railroad?
Dave Trudeau wanted to do it, but they wouldn't.
I thought they put the money aside for that. That was all that's in the thing?
We earmarked a certain amount of money for insulation and windows and stuff like that. And then they told us, no, we're not gonna do it. And now we've gone back, you got the appraisal or the quote from, the Supernos,
Yeah.
from Moores, and Dave said it's a fair price, and it'll give us an R21 value. So, I mean, it's a no-brainer. I mean, it's really,
Yeah.
we'll take the building up.
We gotta keep some.
Not only that, it's a structural, it also helped hold the structure together too, because it's a hard base.
This is, it's 3 inches, so this is only like 2.5 inches. This is, what do you call that stuff, framework?
Composite.
Composite.
Yeah.
So, this is the closed cell, or this is the closed cell, and this is the open cell.
So,
Oh, you can't get in this door. This is a board meeting.
oh, sorry.
That's okay. 3 or 4 of them out there.
You're lucky they didn't get you the snowball. You know, outdoor.
They're climbing on that thing out there.
So again, you know, I apologize for this, I put my head down on the table at that meeting when they said, oh, sure. Where were you for 2 years, so,
That's not too far.
well, you know, you can only take this out.
The architect still from the,
Okay, you want another problem?
Sure, we just solved one, so let's try another one.
Okay, on the composite board, you're gonna put over the cement for the railroad track?
Okay, we got that one, that's next,
Okay.
Okay.
Let me hear what you got to
Okay,
say.
so, so that on your spreadsheet, again, it's gonna add about $29,000 to the project. I hope we can offset some more with IEP, but we already are planning on spending the 168, so that's a question mark, but, that will add it on. Now, for deducts, the Trex decking that I think Benny is referring to. This was a question that DOT raised many times. They never understood why we were doing concrete and then the decking on top.
Exactly.
You have the option of just taking that out and doing, it's $9,500, you could deduct from Jameson's contract. If you're gonna say, basically, if we do the 2 deducts that I'm gonna propose, you'll basically break even with the framing of the turret and the walls for insulation. All we'll need to do is put in a handicapped accessible ramp for when DOT closes the project out. We have to have a way to get a wheelchair in, it has to meet the grade, but that can be done far cheaper than $9,500.
Oh, definitely.
And then ultimately, our goal is to have a nice ramp in the front, which is the main access. Because I know we all felt bad about having to run the wheelchairs around the back. That was only came after we had to take the front part of the ramp and everything out. So that would be one. I've looked at, they did a nice job finishing the concrete in the back on the platform, and I think it would be fine. It's something down the road, if volunteers ever wanted to, they wanted that authentic wood look, somebody could build some wood and lay it right in there, and it wouldn't be a problem at all. So that's one deduct. The other is the interior trim. Sometime between the site assessment of the building and when the crew got in there, the molding went. The crown molding, the chair rail, the baseboard, what was there went. Jameson is proposing for $12,500, we can do the trim. Volunteers can put up whatever molding, chair rail, baseboard
Yep.
we want. It does not have to be done to close out the DOT project, it's considered kind of a fine finish work. And so, you know, we had talked about this before. My guess would be you could find people in the village that would be glad to work on that gradually at their own time. So that would give you a savings of, right there, about $22,000. If you want to go ahead and set that, let me know to set that in motion, or if you have any questions.
Say set it in motion.
Yeah, we can find other
So the composite board you're not putting down on top of the cement?
No.
All right.
We don't really.
That's
Okay,
foolish. That's foolish.
Well, not only that, you couldn't put that down anyhow. For a simple reason, it has to be 12 inches at least to the airspace.
Somebody was just telling me that about Shazy Hart, somebody talked to somebody at Shazy Hart, was you a bumper? I talked to somebody,
No, I don't think- no.
I think, somebody in the village was telling me they talked to Shazy Hart.
Yeah, I talked to Bruce about it.
Was it you? Did you
Yeah.
tell me this?
No, I haven't talked yet.
Okay,
But
so,
I've been talking to Bruce and
okay,
stuff about that composite board, and it says, right, they will not warranty it if it's lower than 12 inches from the ground.
okay. So that, you know, again, and you know.
Not only that, to put that on there and stop the snow removal and stuff like that, how are you gonna,
Exactly.
you know?
It's been cement for, since
Right.
the building has been built.
Yeah.
And of course, since we did the design, Amtrak put all that money in that big cement platform, so I mean, it all just kind of looks, it's not like you'd be stepping out onto wood platform and onto the train, you'd have to then step up on a huge piece of cement before you get to the train, so. So that is another way to save some money. So now if we look at our spreadsheet, the deducts pretty much cancel out the framing of the walls and the turret. So you'd be looking at about 96 or 967,000 that you're saying you're gonna spend, and you're at about 967,000 for funds available, with hopefully that extra 50 coming in to cover whatever else comes down the line. Last item on your sheet is the replacement of the dormer window. There was that little old window, we took those out of window replacement because they were so expensive. They're supposed to be restored, but the one had the exhaust fan in it, so there was no window to restore. We have $1,200 if you want for Jameson to put a window in there. I believe with all the new mechanical exhaust systems, you won't need that fan, you know, in the attic anymore, so it's an option. You know, but it would, the other advantage is it buttons the building up tight and it's closed, and you don't have to still a hole to worry about, you know, when the rest of the building's closed up.
I say just plywood it and put the new slate on.
Fine with me.
Cement it right up, I mean.
No, the way the window is, they take that right out of there and just plywood it, put the slate right over and be done with it.
Yeah, but is the window in a dormer?
This would
Windows
be-
in the dormer.
Right, this would
Oh,
actually
I
replace
thought it
the
was-
There was a
window.
window, there was an old fan there at one time.
Yes.
And stuff like that, so they took that out and threw it away
Mhm.
and stuff. So now you gotta replace it either with close it off or put a window in it or
Right,
something.
so he's offering to put it back the way it originally was with a window. So
Oh,
then
with the
they'll
window.
match on both sides, you'll have.
Yeah, because there's one on the other side.
Oh, I
Oh,
see.
all right.
So, the building gets closed and, it's, you know,
Make it more original with the window.
it would, I
Oh, yeah.
think it would.
Well, there were little panes like this,
Yeah.
like probably 4x4. There were probably 16 of them, I think, in a little pane, a window like this. You know, 4x4 or something like that or whatever. No, it can't be much, man. I mean, geez, remember.
So go ahead and I'll get that change order prepared, okay.
Do you need motions for any of these, Melissa?
You know what, why, if you don't mind, why don't we have them and then we'll have them on record?
I'll make a motion to do the change orders as requested by Melissa.
Second that.
Discussion, vote by the user side by.
Aye.
Thank you, okay. We have, and I just received by mail today, the samples for the flooring. It's this crazy stuff called marmoleum. It's this bendable floor covering. My recommendation, we have to choose from 4 colors. I believe that Trustee Reed is going to be meeting with a member of the Historical Society tomorrow. I would suggest, if all is going well, I thought we'd go to the building and take a look around, show the ladies. Why don't we ask Benny if he's around to walk across the street and just have them look at the colors and make the choice, unless the board
I
wants.
don't know, let the girl, women make.
I don't want to do it. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I don't even deal, it's a good idea.
And they're all neutral. I mean, they're not anything that, and then based upon that, Argus is gonna do the recommended colors for the walls and the trim and everything. So, sound good?
Yeah.
Okay. Last item, I wanted to let you know that I really appreciate the help that everybody gave you. Brian went to the building, talked to the contractors, came to a meeting about our offer to heat the building until the mechanicals are in and it can heat itself. I am unfortunately still stuck in terms of getting a signature from the contractor on a memorandum of understanding that removes any liability from the village for doing this, and that is very clear that it is not our responsibility to guarantee temperature or humidity, because the specs call for the finished wood and the paint, I think it's the painting, and to be done, even the base or the wallboard, under certain temperature and humidity conditions. And I just want, before we are nice and offer this heating to help them out, to be sure that it doesn't, if there's a problem, it doesn't come back to the village. So I'm hoping to be able to work that out, but not yet. So, but I really appreciate everybody's help. Last thing, we sent off 2 payment applications since I was here with you last for about $360,000. Arsen, Becky, and Tracy all have provided me with various canceled checks, so I really appreciate the help. And that money should be back within 6 to 8 weeks at maximum, back to the village. So, and other than